All right. Well, we have a public hearing coming up here on the 21st, and this public hearing is about the public transportation for St. Lawrence County. Can you give us there's a lot of details in this draft. Can you give us some details on what people can pick or maybe change if they don't like in the draft, or just give us a quick outline of the draft?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. First, I'll start with the reasons why the plan has to be created. Every 5 years, New York State Department of Transportation and the Federal Transit Administration ask recipients to prepare a 5-year plan that sort of identifies what are the existing needs in your community, what are some of the transportation gaps, what are the duplication in services, um, what are the needs that should be addressed through the plan? How are you going to prioritize that? And what resources do you have for implementation? And so the first half of the document identifies who lives in St. Lawrence County. And so we looked at the American Community Survey 5-year estimates and identified locations where people may benefit the most from having access to public transit. Not surprisingly, those include aging seniors, persons with disabilities who cannot drive their own personal vehicle, persons with low incomes or may live in affordable housing and otherwise don't have the discretionary income to own and operate a personal vehicle. And then we looked at some of our data with regard to the services we currently provide. And we tried to identify, well, what are the gaps and what could we do to address some of those gaps?
And if anybody, I mean, one example I have, and this may not have anything to do with it, is I live in Messina
Mhm.
and we have the mall, but no one uses the mall anymore, but there's still a bus that goes there. Is there any way that we can get the stop to be changed to across where the mall is? Because there's a gym right there that I use, and I can't drive because of my vision problems. And right now, I'm lucky I got a buddy that'll take me there. But is a hearing where we can suggest ideas like that?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. So not only does the plan identify what some of the needs are, it is open to the idea of how can we revise our services so that they can meet the transportation needs of residents such as yourself. We are just in the completion of our first phase of tech investments in our bus fleet. Next week, as a matter of fact, we are hoping to host a virtual demonstration of a mobile phone app called Passio Go that will help inform our riders where buses are along the route so that they can see what the estimated time of arrival will be to their stop. The other important component that we will be investing that goes with this app is having the drivers electronically track through the software who is boarding at what stop. And our plan is to collect a consecutive number of months of data of where passengers are boarding and not boarding so that we can revise the routes to drop stops where people are not getting on or getting off so that trips can be done more quickly and directly. So it's a great suggestion, Andy. I like that. Our plan is to do that system wide.
And I'm pretty sure we got no Amish listening or viewing our Facebook page, but what are you going to do about the Amish? Because I know the Amish take advantage of or use the service quite a bit. What do you recommend for people who may want to relay the message to the Amish?
Our best ambassadors in communicating with Amish passengers are the drivers, and they provide the most valuable anecdotal information with regard to flag stops, because these drivers are servicing the routes every day. Oftentimes, Amish passengers know the driver and the route by the driver's name, not by the route number. And so they are the first line of communication when it comes to understanding what the transportation needs may be for the Amish passengers.
And we've been talking about buses. Is there any other transportation that I'm not thinking that I'm not covering? I'm thinking mainly buses. I know we don't have the taxi service like we used to. Any programs about maybe helping someone get to the doctor's appointment or anything like that?
Yes, there is a connection program that is offered through a partner agency called Volunteer Transportation Center, and they administer the county's program called First Mile, Last Mile. And it's essentially a feeder service to connect passengers who cannot walk or are not within walking distance of a bus stop to pick them up at whatever address they may be at and to deliver them to a stop to board a bus that can get them to their final destination. That service is complimentary. They don't need to pay for that service, but they do need to pay for the bus fare at time of boarding, which is $2 each way.
And will the
Uh,
rates go up on the buses, or is that still to be determined?
we do not have plans to increase fares, and the reason is this. We are deliberately attempting to make public transportation services affordable to the riding public. So it is not our plan to increase fare rates for anyone.
And I know a lot of communities, and a lot of people like to go out. Is there any talk about maybe doing a later bus at night, maybe on the weekends or something like that?
That would be very nice. The biggest constraint that we have at this time, it's twofold, is making sure that we have enough buses on
Mhm.
hand to expand the fleet. And there is a delay with the release of contracts as well as a delay in the fabrication of buses. You may remember last summer there were a number of auto strikes.
Yep.
That prolonged the delivery of a couple of buses that we have on order. So COVID was not a friend of our system when it came to disruptions with regards to acquiring and expanding our bus fleet. The other big constraint that you may be aware of is having access to a labor pool who have CDLs. And so as a result of COVID, our bus operator, the ARC Jefferson St. Lawrence, instituted a CDL training program where each spring they would send out advertisements through Indeed saying that they were looking for drivers who would like to complete on-the-job training. And that has been successful. And so right now, the ARC is fully staffed with the system that we have on hand.
Mhm.
But my long-term vision for the system is to make sure that we have shuttle service in our 5 population centers and bus service that connects those population centers to one another, as well as to our bedroom communities. It's pretty significant.
Oh,
Right
yes.
now, right now we have about 16 routes. If we were to do 2 buses for shuttle service, that's 10 buses
Mhm.
or 10 routes. 10 buses for 5 routes. And then if we wanted to make sure that we had connections between those communities and the bedroom communities, we're talking about a significant
Yes.
expansion. And so we would love to do that, but it takes time and money.
Yes. And I was reading there, St. Lawrence County is like the fifth largest country or county on this side of Mississippi, but we're the least populated too.
And we have some unfortunate economic circumstances that affect us, right? So the economy has always consistently struggled outside of the 5 boroughs in the city. We continue to have, well, pre-COVID, we had some of the highest unemployment rates. We became a little that wasn't necessarily the case during COVID. Our employment numbers, unemployment numbers were actually pretty good. But with high inflation numbers and the inability to find a qualified labor pool, those are some serious economic challenges that affect us. And our system is run on federal, state, and local taxes. So you have to be mindful of what you are taxing your local community when your economic circumstances may not be so good.
All right, so we got the hearing coming up, the public hearing. Anybody can suggest what kind of suggestions are you looking for from the public?
We are open to the ideas that you had just shared with us, Andy, about some suggested stops or revisions.
Mhm.
If there are gaps that we can somehow solve in the short term through either first mile, last mile, or through bus operations, some of the ways that we will investigate these suggestions is how significant is the gap? How what are the resources that are required to solve that gap, and how quickly can we implement it based on what we have on hand. So we are open to any suggestions concerning our services, but we will have to weigh it with some of the constraints with financial capital and human capital.
All right, and the draft of the draft of the draft of the contract and all that's right there. I'm going to put it at our website 1015thefox.com, and also the link for the public hearing, which can be it's on Zoom, as I understand, as well, for anybody who can't make it out to it.
That's right. We incorporated a hybrid approach during COVID, and we have continued to maintain that practice. So people are welcome to come to the public hearing in person. It will be in the second floor conference room of the Human Services Center here in Canton. The address is 80 State Highway 310. The public hearing will begin at 1 o'clock. And if you were unable to attend in person, you can also contact me, and I will send you a link to Zoom along with a passcode to enter into the hearing right before we begin.
All right, and I'll have all that information at our website 1015thefox.com. All right, is there anything I'm missing this today?
So after the public hearing concludes, people will still have the opportunity to submit their comments to us before the end of the month. Our closing date for comment submission will be March 28th. So even though you may not have comments at the time of the public hearing, don't fear, you'll still have a week left to follow up with us by email.
And if they can't make it, can they start sending you ideas beforehand?
Absolutely. My email address, should you need it, it is mlarson, Larson, at stlawco.gov.
And I'll have that information on our website 1015thefox.com as well. If you can't, emails are so hard to remember when you're listening. So I'll have that information on our website 1015thefox.com as well. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I'm glad you got the press release to me, because I use the public transportation a lot, not being able to drive myself. And I know how difficult it is sometimes to get to certain places, like a doctor's appointment, or like if I have my buddy the gym, or maybe to get a haircut, or maybe just to hang out with other friends that are across town or across on the other side of the county. So I'm glad I got this press release and was able to be part of it. And hopefully we'll get more people to put in their suggestions to make the St. Lawrence County public transportation a lot better and convenient, useful for the people who need it.
Well, I appreciate your suggestions, Andy. If you would like to send me your comments as well, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm happy to hear from anyone else too.